What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Cheeky Midweeky, where we are making strength and conditioning not boring anymore. Not boring, all right? And this, Randy Moore is on the show, and we were just talking off air about Dell State, and the reason that I've been there before. We were talking about the facility, so keep talking about what you're talking about with all those the updates, because these strength coaches listening right now, they might be like, I need to update my weight room. So let's talk about the updates that you got coming and how you did it, because that was super cool to hear.
Well, first thing, yes, I'm at Dell State, but Delaware State actually contracted their strength and conditioning. So I believe we're one of the first schools to actually contract strength and conditioning, and Driven Elite. So Driven Elite is the company, and Donald Driver, former Green Bay Packers Hall of
Who was a
Famer,
savage.
he
Dude, all he
he,
did was catch touchdown passes. Oh my
he still looks
gosh.
like it. Still looks like he can do it.
Bro,
Still
he
real,
was jacked. Like,
still jacked.
is he?
Still Jack. Looks
Oh
like
my
he can go play
gosh.
right now. And he's a great guy. Like great guy.
That's so
Um,
cool.
he's done so much for me in 4 months that I've been working with him. But anyway, his company is contracted by Dell State. So now that we're not employed through the school, we're employed through his company. His company has more range and more freedom, to spice things up. So here, Dell State, yes, it had already had large facility and uh, great things here. But we got to change the sound system. We got to add a new turf, which is about 38 yards, almost 40, 38, all black.
Right in the
Heavy
middle of the weight
range.
room, too. Sorry to interrupt you, right? Like right in the middle of the weight room?
Yep,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
right in the middle of it. 18 racks. We have a few more cardio equipment, just added rowers, assault bikes, treadmills. We're going to get a few more pieces of equipment. And then eventually, sometime next semester or in the summer, we're going to get iPads and cameras at each rack. So we have 18 racks, and we're just trying to make it more efficient for the athletes and ourselves, and just to give them a better experience. So
And now we're caught up to where we were talking beforehand. Is it still just you and an assistant? Was my original question, and it's because one of my former colleagues, Joel Welsh, and his
yeah,
a former intern of ours, Tyler, they were the staff. And so when I was at Towson, because Joel and Mara, his wife, and my wife Megan, we were all close and our boys. So we took a weekend and spent time with them. And so I remember the room, and I remember it was just him and Tyler, and so that's why it's all ringing bells for me. Is it just you? Because, like you said, it sounds like there's more.
All right, so with Driven Elite, I'm actually one of the assistants. I'm the lead football strength coach, but I'm one of the assistants. We have a director of operations. So they're actually married. So director of operations and director of strength and conditioning, they're married. Their names are Alan and Millicent Van Norden. So Millie, Coach Millie, she runs like the operations. She's like the AD. She does the scheduling, meets with stuff we don't have to do as strength coaches. She does the scheduling, meetings, all that. We can just do our jobs freely. Coach Allen, he's the director of strength and conditioning. And then we have 3 assistant strength and conditioning coaches. So myself, there's Coach Nick. We're hiring a third one the end of this month. And then we have a GA, and then we're going to add 2 more GAs. So
That is so unbelievable to hear, because, like I said, I know back when it was Joel and Tyler and one other person. So to hear that much growth, like, how did that happen?
going back to Donald, going back to Donald. So I don't know what previously happened, but Dell State wanted to make a change in their athletics program. Here they're trying to market better. They're trying to market better. So Donald, has his company, came up with a great, business plan, business model. He's like, man, I went to a HBCU. So Donald went to Alcorn State, and he knows firsthand that a lot of HBCUs don't have what Power Fives have, or they don't have what good FCS schools have, But Dell State actually has some, good stuff here. So just to make it a little more marketable and more branding and making things more efficient. Donald, shopped his idea out to different schools, and then Dale State was one of the first ones. Like, let's contract, so contract the strength and conditioning, and then his company's really the main reason why we get so much enhancement with what we're doing. We actually, I don't know if you saw the nutrition station when you were here, but we've added nutrition station. Now the kids, can get protein or bars or honey stingers after lifts and whatnot. And this time around next year, it'll be a well-oiled machine, but we have student workers, to make the smoothies, milkshakes, and things of that nature after they're done working out.
So the reason that is just hitting so home to me is it was not like that when I was there. Joel literally had $2,000 for the whole semester for the nutrition budget. And so what he did was he just took all of that and bought 10-pound bags of whey protein from Optimum and had Gatorade bottles just to give them whey protein at the very, like, he realized, he's like, what's the bare essentials that I need to give him? And that's what he gave them. So to hear that, just, is the nutrition contracted out too, or is it just strength and conditioning?
I really don't know the full extent of that. I just know we can work hand in hand with athletics in our company. So if athletics puts up $2,000-3,000 and we put up the rest, like, we get to add, we get to enhance to the department. But our business, we have a little more money than the athletics department. So, but we work combined. So
How did you get in touch with all of them? Like, how did this all come to fruition? Because, if anybody looks you up right now, you and I were both you were at Hampton, we were both in the
right.
CAA, you were at Norfolk State before that. um, how did that all this transpire? Because anybody saw you on social, like, it seemed like it just kind of happened out of
It
nowhere,
did.
right?
It did. So it was really funny. And this is, I'm a believer, so I believe in God, and He did all this for me.
Same.
So Hampton, most recently, I was the head football strength coach at Hampton last year, and I was getting married last year. So my wife and I, we had a long conversation, a lot of praying, and we had to make the best move for our marriage because a lot of my family, they tell me, family and friends, they'll tell me, put your marriage, put everything in your marriage, like, start it off right. And we'll just say Hampton wasn't the place for me to start off my marriage right. So I ended up resigning December 31st. Well, I gave the 2 weeks on December 17th. Literally got married December 21st.
Oh my God.
When I got back to Virginia, I moved up to Charlottesville because that's where my wife was. Didn't have a job, didn't have anything. So really took a leap of faith. So I was in Charlottesville, Virginia, January to July. So while I was in Charlottesville, there's a gym called Adapt. I did some part-time training there with the UVA. A lot of UVA people go there, a lot of local high schoolers and whatnot. But I can't thank them enough. Adapt Charlottesville. So if you're in Charlottesville, check out Adapt. So private sector, great guys. The men's basketball strength coach actually owns that company, Adapt. So Mike Curtis, great guy too. Great guy. Got
I
to
feel like
meet
I've heard the
him.
name before. Yeah.
Great guy. Got to meet with him, talk shop with him, and he just opened my eyes to a few things. And then working with Adapt, it was what I needed at that moment. But I still wanted to get back in collegiate strength and conditioning. So around June, I'm applying for jobs. I had interviews at a few schools. Saw this on LinkedIn, driven the lead, working at Dale State. I'm like, I'm gonna just apply. I saw Donald Driver and all that. I'm gonna just apply. I get a call the same night. So a guy who's like my uncle, his name's Coach Willie Totten. He was Jerry Rice's quarterback. So when I worked in Mississippi at Mississippi Valley State, me and him got real close because I used to train his daughter too. She plays basketball. So he calls me the same night, like, hey, he calls me Coach Swole. He's like, Coach Swole, Coach Swole,
What's up, strength coaches? Taking a quick break away from the show to let you know about our membership site. Not only do we at Strength Coach Network put out the Cheeky Midweeky, but we have a membership site where you gain access to a video library and a members only forum. Inside the video library, you will have access to over 170 different lectures, which equals over 400 hours of content. Inside of these content, it is every sport you could think of and every topic in strength and conditioning. In our members only forum, we have career advice and we have topics in strength and conditioning where coaches ask each other questions and we help each other inside the network. You can try the network out for 24 hours for $1 if you are not a member. Click the link down below and you will be able to check us out.
You just applied? Because Donald just called me. I was like, oh, snap, you know him? Like, yeah, that's like my little nephew. You know? So he's calling him. He's like, he's going to call you tomorrow. Like, I put in a good word for you. And at that time, I'm like, I don't know if I really want this job because I don't want to move to Delaware. Like, I don't want to move here. So I get the interview. The interview went great. Like, it's one of the most professional interviews I've ever had in my life. Like, just great.
Was it in person or how did it go?
It was Zoom. It was Zoom. So Donald was in his still in Texas, and then I had it with Coach Millie and Coach Allen. And the interview went great. So about 5 days later, I actually declined it. I declined the job because I'm like, at the same time, I had some other things going. It just didn't come through. So recircle back, did some renegotiating, and then my wife and I prayed on it again. Got some counseling from our pastor and friends, and ended up taking it second time around. So it was really crazy, really crazy. But looking back, I'm glad God put me here because it's really the right timing for where I'm at in my life and my wife. You know, so it's really a 2-for-1, and you can't beat that. So
You can't. I feel like God put me in the same position here with my wife and myself. Like, what it made it so special for you and her? What is she doing?
So my wife, when we met, she does FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Okay.
So she did sports ministry for the women's basketball team at UVA. She did the track and field team, softball, rowing. So she was basically, their kind of like their chaplain
The chaplain, yeah.
or whatnot. So what turned out great for both of us here, she knew the former FCA director that was at Dell State. But after COVID, Dell State kind of just, like shut it down. It didn't come back. So I told my supervisors and the head football coach, my wife's gonna be coming. She does FCA, blase, blase, blase. So lo and behold, I got here first in August. She comes in September. She gets here in September. Dell State has a football chaplain, but he couldn't do it. So football coach comes up to me like, would your wife mind, doing chapel the first week? I'm like, okay. I asked her, she's cool. So that first week turned into the rest of the year. The AD Gatson, she got to see the second one. She loves it. She started making connections, and FCA is starting to get rolling. We just have to sign a few papers and make sure it's a legit thing on campus. And then this time around next year, it'll be in full circle. I mean, not next year, next semester, it'll be in full circle. So she gets to jump right back into FCA like she never left, and she gets to actually lead it. She gets to lead it. So it's been great just watching her just doing her thing with the athletes that she's meeting, and just really she got to travel with me, with
Oh my
the
God, yeah.
FCA, and she's the chaplain. So we got to travel together, work together, and it was just beautiful, So
That's unbelievable. And hearing
can't make
that,
it
it's
up.
like there's no way that could have been done on humans' time. Like there's no way. Like that is divine intervention right there. Anybody listening to that right there, like how
Yes, sir.
there's no way you could have planned that.
None
Uh,
whatsoever.
how did you have hearing you talk about, the ability to renegotiate? Like any of our strength coaches that might be listening, maybe they're in a position like for me, when I was at Iowa, I needed to get out and I needed to go to Towson. Like it was time for me to leave. How do you handle that? Like you were in a position where you kind of wanted, like you wanted to do your own thing. Like how did you have the fortitude and the strength to be like, you know what, I think this is right, but I'm going to actually say no and try to renegotiate? Because I don't think that that's something that us strength and conditioning coaches get
Yeah.
taught or learn how to do.
Well, I know for me, it comes down to two things. One, like I said, I'm a believer, so I'm gonna take it straight to the Lord. Like, look, Lord, this is what I want, but I don't know how to go about it. This was actually my first time renegotiating ever.
Okay.
First time. So after I prayed about it, my mentor came to mind. My mentor's name is Stephon Healy. He's the first guy that gave me a strength and conditioning opportunity. Very professional man. Um, so he works at Gallaudet University in DC, School for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. So that's where I got my first opportunity at to do strength and conditioning. So I looked to him for a lot of professional advice. So I called him, like, Coach Healy. I, I actually declined the job because I told him, I had an interview and whatnot. Um, I want to renegotiate, but I don't know how to go about it. So he told me how to renegotiate. He told me what he usually does is if they give you a price that you know you think is low, go 10,000 higher and see what happens. Because the worst they gonna say is no. Once once he told me that, I was like, okay, I feel a little more confident, because the worst they are gonna say is no, and if it's a no, you can just move on, you know. So that was that for the salary, and then just be upfront and truthful. That be upfront and truthful what your situation is and what you need, you know. So I was upfront and truthful. Like, this is my situation, and this is what I need to actually just consider coming there. Not saying I'm gonna come there, but I'll hardly consider coming there if we make A, B, C, D. And then he told me if A, B, C, and D don't get fulfilled, try to get at least two or four. And then if you feel comfortable, you and your wife, then move forward. So if you don't get the full plate, maybe you get 75%, maybe you get 50%. But if it's good for what you need, then go ahead and take it. If it's still not, don't take it. You know? So doing that, I'm like, dang, that's my first time negotiating. I didn't get 100% of what I wanted, but I literally got 85%.
That's some outstanding advice, not only for me to hear, but I feel like for our listeners out there who, I mean, the fact that that was your first time doing it, you got 85% of what you wanted. Like, shout out to you for that. That's unbelievable.
It can seem nerve wracking too. I'm like, I'm nervous. I ain't never done this. I don't want to seem like I'm an a hole or anything like that.
Yeah,
I'm just
especially,
like,
yes.
but just be honest and upfront. That's the main thing my mentor told me too. Like, just be honest upfront. The worst they gonna say is no. So I take that
So,
to heart.
oh, keep going. Sorry about that.
No, I was just saying, I take that to heart. Like, if they say no, then it's not meant to be. It wasn't for you.
So hearing, you talk about the differences and how you're like, okay, I get to just do my job with football. Do you think it's good? Like, is there any fear maybe that you have or apprehension where, okay, if you're in charge of everything, you know more versus are you getting into a siloed approach because you're only doing your thing, or is it no, you just get to be super specific with your time and then you're collaborative on the back end? And the reason I ask this is, we're seeing more and more, at least in Strength Coach Network, high performance teams and collaboration between ATC and nutrition and all of this. So if you're starting to fractionalize it where you're not even doing the scheduling, is that an issue? I know that's a complicated question, but what are your thoughts on all that?
I say at first, it was an issue because I'm like, this is unorthodox. I'm used to scheduling. I'm used to doing this. I'm used to doing that. But what I see now, it gives me more time. Like, it gives me so much time to just focus more on football, and I'm working 3 other teams. They're small teams: tennis, bowling, and volleyball. But it gives me more time to focus on my athletes. Like I don't have to worry about, all right, you can't make this day, you can't make that day, you can't do this, you can't do that. Like that's already enough stress. I'm like,
Yes.
there's too much stress. I'm just
Yes.
trying to train these kids, like make them better at life and for their sport. But now I gotta everything on top of that. Boom, boom, boom. It takes so much stress like away from my head, from my body. Like I don't have to worry about that. That's what our director of operations is for. She's kind of like the assistant AD for strength and conditioning, but
Yeah.
handles all the paperwork. Yes, once everything is drawn out, then she lets us know, all right, this is the schedule. If you have to make a little tweak, that's fine. But I don't have to worry about.
What's up, strength coaches? Want to take a quick break from the show to talk to you about our sponsor, TeamBuildr. TeamBuildr is your one-stop shop for online training platform needs as a coach. With TeamBuildr, you're going to be able to program for your athletes whether they're in person or remote. Using TeamBuildr, not only will you be able to program for your athletes, but there are special features such as the leaderboard and locking training with wellness questionnaires. With the leaderboard, you can have an exercise performed that day, whether it be a lift, a sprint, or a jump, and scores can be updated in real time and projected on a TV in the training. Wellness questionnaires can be used at the beginning of training, and your athletes will have to fill them out prior to being able to train. This ensures that as a coach, you're being able to collect quality data before the athletes train. So, if you're interested in TeamBuildr, click the link down below and find out more information. Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about our newest sponsor, Hawkin Dynamics. Hawkin Dynamics builds and designs software and hardware for coaches, athletic trainers, sports scientists, and everybody in the high performance department. Most notably, their use of their force plates with the ease of transportation and ease of use. Not only did I use them when I was at Towson, but I've used them when I've moved back here to Iowa with Tucker at Goldfinch. So, check out Hawkin Dynamics in the link down below. Now let's get back to the show.
We can just do strength and conditioning. Like it's like you're more free. The best way I could put it. I'm just free. I don't
Do
have to
you
go to
think
head
that this
coach
is
meetings.
the now potential future? Because people are going to start hearing about this, and I hope it starts to catch fire. Do you think that this is a potential future? Because I know at Towson, there were athletic training positions that were contracted out through MedStar. Like, this is the first time I've ever heard about it. Strength and conditioning. Actually, no, MedStar was going to start doing a strength and conditioning position at Loyola. Like, is this
Mhm.
a new trend that's going to start to happen?
From what I see, I think it can be because we're trailblazing. This is the first time it's done here, and I'm not gonna say it's the first time done ever, but this is the first time I know about that it's been done at the college level. I think it can be a trend, in a good way. Because one, what I'm learning, if you contract another company to do something for you, specifically AT, I believe is less money on the athletics department. You know,
Yep.
now you don't have to pay 8 athletic trainers or 9, 10, or whatever. You don't have to pay 5 strength coaches. So I know it's gonna trend probably in the HBCU realm, just a little bit more. But hopefully it trends a little more because what I like about it is time management and quality of life. Like I don't want. I'm not gonna say I'm gonna have the most perfect marriage, but I don't want our marriage to suffer because of my job in strength and conditioning. Like when I say right now, time balance and just quality of life has been so much better doing this contracted position through another company, and I still get to do what I love to do. Like I can't ask for more. You
Yeah,
know,
you're giving me goosebumps hearing that because I feel like there had been an exodus of coaches where it's like they're
yeah,
going tactical, they're going high school, I mean,
right.
shit, they're going to go sell Vald and all these different pieces of equipment to still kind of be in athletics, but
Hmm.
they're just kind of fed up with what you talked about. And that's where we've talked about the 4 Ps: pay, personal life, career progression, sense of greater purpose. And if you
Correct.
don't have all four, like it's okay, 4 or 4, 3 or 4, 2 or 4, 1 or 4, very similar to what your mentor talked about. And I am getting excited because I don't want to see great coaches leave the field. I want to make athletics and college athletics, strength and conditioning better, to do exactly what you said. Help them with their sport, but become better people. I mean, shoot, even if you're in a position that you can do things with FCA and show them, the gospel and spread the news of Jesus Christ with them. Like doing all of those things, but you can then take the stress of everything off the table with it. Like, that's what I'm excited about right now.
Oh, most definitely. Like the first month, like I said, it was unorthodox because I'm getting
Were you
used
like
to it.
walking on eggshells? Like, cause that's what I would have been doing. I would have been like, what do I do?
Yeah, that's because I'm like,
Like,
I, basically the best I can put this is the private sector meshed with collegiate athletics, but you still get to be a strength coach. You know?
that's a good way of saying it. That makes sense.
But I'm like, it was unorthodox, but now I'm like, it's not unorthodox. You know, I'm getting a feel of how everything is going. Like the kids love it. Kids love it. Coaches, they're jumping on board slowly but surely. Like it's been great.
So do they feel like you guys are like kind of mercenaries, for lack of a term, better term, like rather than like, is it almost like I'm not saying that the military and athletics are the same. I'm not, but is it like contracted mercenary military versus like the army because they were people that already like, were they afraid that maybe people wouldn't care as much because it's not a Dell State people? Like, was that something that they had to overcome? And if so, what's the piece of advice you'd give to any strength coach that maybe is going through this, or they might be implementing this soon?
I'll say it's more so a culture thing. You know, I'll say you said contracted mercenary. We're more like a contracted mediator. We're mediating. You know, so we're changing the culture that was here before. And you know, I'm never gonna speak bad about people or anything like that. Whatever strength coach you do, whatever strength and conditioning you do, you're gonna have to. It's gonna be a culture. It could be a great culture. It could have been a bad culture. It could have been a okay culture. But you want to get the culture great, and that's what we're doing here as contracted mediators. I'll say, like I said before, just mediating and mitigating, and then just helping the culture. So
Now, what culture is it? Anybody listening to that, is it Dell State culture? Is it driven elite culture? Like, which one is it? And do you have to choose, or like,
Dell State culture.
okay,
So we're changing Dell State culture to get elite, driven elite, to up to our culture, up to our standards. But how we do it is very tactical. Uh, I believe the biggest thing you have to do in changing the culture is treating people like they're people with respect, like
yep.
love them. Like yes, they're athletes, but they're people first. You know, and I think you know in my younger days I looked at them as athletes first instead of people. You know, I want you to squat this. I want you to run this. At the end of the day, no one cares about that. You know, outside in the outside world, we got to get them as people first. You know, and that's what we've been doing this whole month. Like just loving these kids, encouraging them, saying you can. Like we don't want to hear what we used to. Yeah, that's fine, but we're moving forward. You know, that's fine. You can express that, but if it's negative, we don't want to hear it. Like we don't want to hear any negativity here because we ain't got nothing to do with that. You know, we have nothing to do with negativity. So we're gonna be positive, and this is just the culture moving forward. You know, so
Can you speak to that mindset? Because I feel like right now, anybody listening, I'm not sure if you're going to be listening to it now, but this is the first day in the month of December 2023. So this is the first week where there's a lot of change in college football. There's a lot of like people are going to be having new jobs and taking over programs. And you have a very positive, not punching down mindset. Speak to coaches that maybe had that, because I used to be that way and I'm still working on it. But how speak positivity into it, speak advice to our listeners out there of like, okay, if you're coming in and even if the program did things that you don't agree with and maybe aren't even the best and most safe, how do you handle that professionally? Because hearing you speak for the last 27 minutes has been nothing like it. I want your advice too, and I want everybody else to hear it.
well, I say this. Start off with this. There's a book called 3D Coaching, Three Dimensional Coaching. FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, tries to give it to most of their coaches on staff. Well, not most of their coaches on staff. So, for example, I'll say at UVA, my wife introduced me to 3D coaching. You know, I'm like, I don't even know what 3D coaching is. Like, but all it is positivity. So a lot of coaches, and I used to do this. Like, I'm not saying I'm the perfect coach. I'm never going to say I'm the perfect coach. I used to look at athletes as, what they can do for me, and if we do that, that's the wrong mindset, because eventually you're going to lose them, because in their minds, we don't care about them,
Yep.
So 3-dimensional coaching, the first dimension is just physical. That's how I looked at my athletes, like physical: squat, bench, clean, run, jump. I want great numbers. And that means I'm a great coach. Not necessarily, because it don't work for every athlete. Some athletes, you can work in the first dimension for them because they really care about it, like jumping, cleaning, sprinting, cutting. Second dimension is the next surface, their mind. Like, all right, can we get their minds going with the physical? But the third dimension is the best one, is the heart. If you can capture their heart, they'll do anything for you. Now, how you capture their heart, you got to get to know them just a little bit. Outside of strength and conditioning, do they have kids? Where they're from? What they majoring in? What is their why? What's their family situation? And now it's not all gonna happen overnight. It's just little subtle things each day. You find out they have a child outside of here. How's your kid doing? Like, when I ask kids that, oh, I got a kid, and you asking about it, like, you care, because a lot of people, a lot of coaches, or a lot of people don't know, and they don't ask that. Once you capture that heart, they start coming up to you. How you doing today, coach? You start getting communication and dialogue. That's what you want.
Yep.
Once you get that communication and dialogue, they respect you. You know, so once we capture that heart, the rest will come, the physical and the mind.
Does it
Capture
blow
that.
your mind a little bit? Because you know that. So, and I feel like I do too, because I used to try to make that emphasis of during the warm up, either it was everybody was like, if they're foam rolling and mini banding, like we wouldn't cadence everything, or even if it was cadence, I'd try to have a leader on the team do it, or my assistants, because I'd want to walk around and talk to the players and just get to know, like, so for me, hearing that and being like, okay, I understand that. How do you again handle the coaches that don't do that without getting mad? And I guess I'm starting to answer my own question. It's like, okay, that's not the way Jesus would have done it. First of all, second of all, somebody can't, if somebody's never been, you can't give what you've never been given. Is that really what it is? Like, I feel like I'm talking to myself.
I got you. No, I understand that. From what I'll say, I started this at Norfolk State in Mississippi Valley. So Mississippi Valley and Norfolk State, when I started learning without this 3D dimensional book, is 3 words that you have to be active about. It has to be action. It is, I love you. Some coaches will say I love you, but it's after a game and we won. Oh, I love you, man. But to the kid, it's like, I love you only because I produced a win for you, or helped produce
Conditional.
a win for you. When you said warm ups, foam rolling, things like that, during the warm ups, what I started doing either after or before, like, I'll dap you up. Hey, I love you. Let's have a great day. Boom. I love you. Let's have a great day. I love you. Did you pass that class today? It's something I love you, and something related to the kid. But then on top of that, you have to show every day that you love them. Open door policy. At the end, if you come down hard on them, then positively reinforce them. This is all out of love. Tomorrow, I'm still gonna love you. Huh? Today, over with. You know, they know if you take it personal or not. Like, you say hi to them today, and then tomorrow you don't say hi to them. That may be a personal thing. I tell them, hey, I'm gonna tell you hi, good morning, I love you every single day, because it's not personal to me. I'm just trying to get you better. you know, that's all I'm trying to do. But if me personally, if I don't speak to you, then it's personal. You know, that's just for me. I can't speak for any other coach out there. But if I don't speak to you every day, it's probably because of something personal. You know, like I have a grudge or something. And if I do that, please call me out. So another thing that goes along with this love thing, when we mess up, we have to own up to it too. They
Yep.
have to see us. Like, it's been times where I've been like, look, guys, or look, ladies, I messed up and I apologize. that goes a long way because they got to see we're human too. We're gonna mess up.
Quick break from the show to remind you to hit that like and subscribe button so that way you get notifications of when more content like this gets released. So click that like and subscribe button. And with that, let's get back to the show.
It's
Yeah, I
got
actually had that. I had that happen for me when one time we had a kid. He didn't show up to training, and there was there was there was miscommunication in the way that we handled somebody missing. The discipline for it was, okay, instead of doing speed session, we would push prowlers as the speed session. Like, we would still have work to rest ratios that were appropriate, but like, okay, we would change the speed session and then we would change the lift to doing plate get-ups. And it's like, okay, look, we're going to make sure it's prescriptive. We're not adding this into the lifting, but we're going to be very detailed in understanding that, hey, this happened, this is the reminder. And the kid actually wound up communicating it properly to his position coach, but not properly through the channels so that we knew. So the guys got, had to do modified training because of this. And then, long story short, okay, I didn't get communicated with. And so what I did is like, all right, fellas, there was a little bit of miscommunication. I'm going to take the responsibility. I'm going to do the same exact thing. And I was like, listen, if you want to come to the weight room, you can watch me do the same 6 reps of the prowler pushes at the same weight. I'm going to do the same amount of plate get-ups for the same sets of time. You can watch me if you want to see me do it or not. I am doing it because, yes, I could have easily been like, it wasn't my fault, but I took the extreme ownership route of it. And I think it was as good of a win-win situation as possible, because I felt like I could have just been like, Bob, your fault. You should have communicated it with me.
Right. I've done that here too. it was. I love. First, let me circle back to you. I love hearing that. Because we're not perfect either.
Nope.
But when people see that we mess up too and we own up to it, I believe that goes a long way. So, example, and I'm gonna ask you how that athlete looked at it, the way you did it. Like, like, I messed up, I'm gonna do it too. Well, let me just go into that. How did that athlete respond after that? How did you see that athlete respond to you after that?
Oh, it definitely, the situation was diffused because at first he was pissed. He was pissed and he was like, this is bullshit. The coaches always say that we got to be held accountable, but nobody's holding the coaches accountable. And
Amen.
it instantly was diffused.
Amen. Diffused. Great. Same thing happened here. Kid shows up late, and it's because of something that wasn't his fault. Actually, it wasn't his fault. It wasn't my fault. But I had him do our reminders, plate get ups. I'm like, I don't want to hear that. Like, we're trying to change the culture. Like, we need to be better. I go back to the kid. Like, look, sir, that's my fault. So whatever you did, I'm gonna do it +5. Because I messed up and I'm sorry. I apologize. So I feel like I need to, just like you said, I need to do the reminders too. And I'm gonna do it right in front of you after we get done lifting. Situation, like you said, diffused. Moving forward, we never had an issue. We actually had more dialogue. Like, coach, I respect you for doing that, because this is what the athlete said. Coach, I respect you for doing that, because a lot of coaches feel like they're always right.
Yep.
Well, I can't speak for other coaches, Mr. Athlete, but this is just what Coach Moore is going to do. But like you said, it diffuses, and then I believe, like you said, you capture that athlete's heart. They'll do anything for you.
Yeah, I think that definitely, like, it's a complex situation. You can't single anything out, but I feel like that athlete and I definitely had a better relationship after that. And he was a kid that was he was super tough and always held his cards close to his chest. And then, like, eventually had the courage when we were going through something as a team. Like, he actually cried in front of me, and like, we were able to have like a real relationship. Again, not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but like, I feel that situation, I definitely could have gone one way or the other. And anybody listening to this now, old, like, quote unquote, old me, I probably would have blown up and been like, no, it don't matter. Like, but as a much more mature, better coach, I'm telling you, like, I learned more from these kids when I was working with them at Towson than anything otherwise. Like, I learned to be a better coach from making all the mistakes that I made. Plain and simple.
I'm with you on that, 100%. 100%.
Switching stories, like what is your origin story? Like we've kind of teased around it, but for anybody that's made it this far, like what is your background? What got you into strength and conditioning? Like dive into your genesis.
All right, I'll start in high school. So I'm originally from Detroit. Went to Detroit Renaissance High School, one of the best high schools in Michigan and the best high school in Detroit. Um, I always joke because Cass Tech's a big high school in Detroit. Our rivals. I will say they did produce better athletes. I'll say that right now. They did, but we're still the best high school. But in high school, I knew I wanted to do either personal training or strength and conditioning. Now, how I got into it, um, I actually got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 15.
Really?
Yes. No one in my family has diabetes, type 1 or type 2.
Really?
It just happened.
Huh?
So I remember being in the hospital and I saw I guess it's a hospital roommate. So it was a young kid, had to be 2 years old. I'll never forget this. I remember like it's yesterday. So I'm learning everything about type 1 diabetes, injections, all this stuff. And I'm sitting here like, dang, how I'm going to do this? So I remember the young kid. I don't remember his name, but I remember him. Never complained. 2 years old. He's 2 years old. His parents injecting him. He's just doing what he has to do, not crying, not whining. And I'm looking at this little kid like, oh my goodness, like he's not complaining. He's not doing anything. So I can't complain. I'm 15. I'm 15, man. But anyway, I just remember looking at him and he was just so determined. So I asked him as much as he could, understand, like, how do you keep going? So actually, his parents,
Yeah.
his parents step in, like, man, we just gonna keep going because if we just stop, everything else is just gonna go terrible. We can't
Yeah.
have a bad mindset about this. It's either gonna do one or two things. It's gonna keep proving our character through adversity, or we just gonna shut down and shrivel up.
Oh,
I was like, okay. So I'm sitting, and I remember my mom. She fell asleep on me. She took it worse than I did at the time. My mom. So I'm sitting there thinking, like, dang, what am I gonna do? I'm an athlete. I'm playing basketball at the time. I'm running track. I'm doing this. I'm working out. The doctor said, like, they don't know how you got it because you're an athlete. So I'm like, okay. I'm thinking in the bed, like, I got to do something to stay active the rest of my life. I got to do this. I love working out, so I think I'm gonna go personal trainer route. Fast forward to college. College, I went to Oakland University, where I ran track. I was a track athlete. My only regret in life is that I didn't keep pursuing football. I stopped playing football at a very young age to pursue basketball, but didn't even do basketball in college. I actually ran track. But anyway, my track coach, my sprint coach, he came up to me after one of my worst showings in track and field. Like I ran the 60, the 460 and 200 indoor, and then the 4x1 and the 100 outdoor.
so you were fast.
I was okay. I didn't know what fast was till I started going down south.
Oh, true.
10-7, 10-8 up in the Midwest, that's pretty fast. But once you start going down south and kids running 10-2, 10-1, now they're fast.
Yeah.
But anyway, my track coach, he comes up to me. He's like, Randy, you going to be a coach one day. I'm looking at him like, man, whatever. Like, So fast forward after college, I remember what he said to me. You know, I didn't know if I was going to fully submerge myself in personal training or strength and conditioning yet. So after college, I did personal training. Didn't like it because I'm just not the business savvy guy. Like I just want to train people.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I
Yeah.
want to do. I don't want to do anything outside of this with business and I didn't want to do all that then. But now, actually doing Driven Elite, I'm learning the business role. I'm a little more mature to handle it. But anyway, I did personal training for about 6 months, didn't like it. And going back to my mentor, like I said, Coach Healy, I started looking at strength and conditioning, got my CSCS. I'm like, okay, I want to do strength and conditioning. So I get to strength and conditioning, get my first internship at Gallaudet University in DC under Stephon Healy. That's my mentor, Coach Healy. Turns out to be one of the best things for me because Gallaudet is school for the deaf and hard of hearing. So with that, I learned one, a different culture, ASL, American Sign Language, and two, I really learned how to teach movements because I can't talk. I cannot talk to these kids. I have to sign, I have to stop. I really have to learn how to teach these kids how to run or jump or cut or land. So it was the best 3 years of my life. Well, 2.5. Best 2.5 years of my life because I really learned how to teach the movements and really learned how to explain. That part got so easy to me, you know. So I was intern for really 3 months, and then they hired me on as an assistant, and I stayed there for 2.5 years. So at 24, 25, I got my first director role as director of peak performance and fitness at Allegheny College in Meadville, Pennsylvania. It was a D3. Now that position, I was scared. I'm I'm 24, 25. I'm like, my mentor told me I'm ready, but I don't feel ready. you know, I'm like, I'm still a baby. But turned out it went well. That first 3 months, I had a lot of communication with my mentor, and I thank God for him because he guided me through so much and re-encouraged me. He's like, no, you can do this, and don't be afraid to mess up. Just make sure you don't kill the kids. you know, like he was like, you're going to mess up with some stuff. Just make sure no one breaks their backs, no one ruptures their knees or any tendons when you're doing your workouts. Have confidence in it. I'm not around you anymore, but this is where you got to learn and grow up.
Yep.
So he would constantly know what to do, but you're going to mess up in terms of this is what he told me. Like, you're gonna mess up in terms of relationships sometimes. You may miss a second of, like a work to rest ratio. If it's supposed to be 60 seconds and you did 58, don't kill yourself over that. Because I wanted everything to be so perfect. That's what I'm like. And then I want these kids to be bigger, stronger, faster. This is what I didn't know then, what I know now, that it's gonna take time. Like the first month, these kids are not gonna be bigger, stronger, faster. Like the way you want them to. It's
Correct.
not gonna happen. So that's when I learned, like, look, it takes time. Like, all this takes time. And don't let the coaches come in and be like, well, they need to be bigger, stronger, faster in a month. Well, that's not gonna happen. That's not realistic. Like, that's what I was learning at that time. But anyway, I was director of peak performance there for a year, 2015 to 2016. Young me saw an opportunity to get more money, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna move to the next position. So I moved to Georgia. I was the director of strength and conditioning at Shorter University in the Gulf South Conference, and that gave me the exposure to the Deep South. So I'm like, this Deep South stuff is different. Like, these kids are different. They have a different mentality, a different mindset. It helped me grow, like as a person, as a coach, because these kids are just a little different than Northeast or DC, Virginia kids. All the kids are great. They just have a different mindset.
Yeah.
So it helped me grow. It actually pushed me to be a better strength coach because they're like, Coach, we ready. So I had to learn how to don't just say just because they ready. I don't have to ramp everything up 100,000%. We still progressing, progressively overloading, progressively doing this. Just because they say we can doesn't mean the next day we going 200, 300 pound difference, you know? So that's when I really learned how to just, progressively periodize or undulate. And some kids, they can handle better, so I can undulate them a little bit. I don't have to stay linear with those type of kids. Whereas some kids, they have to, just continue simple linear periodization because they can't handle undulating because their background ain't the same. That opened my eyes to like, wow, different kids. Like I can undulate this kid because his background is just different. He's a monster. Whereas this kid, they're not a monster. But I still have to get them to be better individuals and better athletes. But shorter university, it was a good experience for me. But some, things happen administration wise. And I'm 28 at the time, still learning, still maturing. And someone basically said something to me that if 25-year-old me, if you said that to me, we probably wouldn't be talking right now. We would not be talking right now, coach. But I thank God for grace and mercy and maturity, man. Like
Facts.
it's just some stuff like if they say to you at the wrong time in life, like we wouldn't be talking. It's just being honest. But shorter university from there, in 2018, I got to Mississippi Valley State as their director of strength and conditioning. I never wanted to move to Mississippi in my life, but Mississippi happened to be one of the best situations ever in my life.
Why?
I learned and grew so much as a person, not just a coach, but a person. And I will say, being in Mississippi helped when I moved to Virginia, got the Norfolk State, and then the Hampton gig. It helped me be prepared for where I'm at now. One, marriage. It helped me to be ready for marriage. Because I will say, at first, I wanted to be married at 25. And I just want to go back and smack 25-year-old me. Like, why did you say that? Because you weren't ready. You weren't ready, man. But Mississippi, it helped prepare me and mature me so much that like it helped me for everything that what I'm going through now. But I was at Mississippi Valley for 3.5 years. Um, it was a hard first year, but after those, growing pains and changing the culture, it became one of the best experiences for me. We didn't have much, but we made do with what we had, you know. And then that's when I started networking again back in Mississippi because it really wasn't much to do in Mississippi where I was at. So I'm like, man, I gotta get back networking. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. But like I said, it was one of the best experiences of my life at Mississippi Valley State. And like I said, that's where I met my uncle. I call him my uncle now, Coach Willie Totten, and that's how we got, full circle back to Driven Elite because he knows Donald Driver and all that. But it was just great. And then when I left Mississippi Valley State, director at Norfolk State, and then Norfolk State to Hampton, Hampton to Charlottesville, and now Charlottesville here. So Driven
You
Elite.
kept talking about maturity. What would be your piece of advice to any of our listeners right now that either are young and they're not ready to mature, or somebody that is older and needs to figure out how to mature? What's your piece of advice?
One, be honest with yourself. At some point, you have to have that face to face with yourself in the mirror. What do I need to work on? What do I need to grow in? And then if you're not sure, ask someone you trust. Because like I tell these athletes, like, coaches tell athletes things over and over again, but it hits different when your peer tells you.
Yes, it
Like,
does.
yeah, you need to grow up, man. But a coach tells you that, you're like, that's my coach. Whatever. But when your peer tells you that, oh my goodness, it just does something, you know? So when I had that one on one with myself, like, all right, I need to grow in this. But what does my mentor, Coach Healy, think? And then when I ask him and he tells me, it just hits so different, you know? So I know it's honest. He's not going to lie to me. He will never lie to me. So when I find someone like that and they say the same thing, you like, dang, it hurts. But it's the truth. So then I'm like, dang, okay, I need to mature. Once I'm honest, then I find someone who can help me. So, for example, if I need some help from, I had a talk with Coach Healy, and he says, look, you need to do X, Y, Z, you know, and I know it's the truth because it hurts. Well, maybe Coach Justin, he's been, around. Maybe I'll reach out to Coach Justin and he can help me. Like, you have to be honest with yourself all the time, man. And then if you're unsure, find someone who will be honest with you that's a peer, and then get help from outside sources or someone in your network. Do your research, then you just go ask. So I'm getting better with maturity wise as far as asking for help. As a man, sometimes
Mm.
I don't want to ask for help because
Yeah,
I
that'll
got an
preach.
ego. I got an ego. I got pride. But at the end of the day, if I'm gonna get some help, I gotta bring all that down, my ego and my pride. And at the end of the day, when I do, like it's one of the best feelings in the world that I can't describe. Like I don't know everything, but as a man, I'm wired to, I'm just gonna take on everything, and I don't need help. I keep learning. Every time I do that, I fall face first. So it's part of, looking back, just being honest and asking for help. Once you get better with that, the world gets better. you know, I even, look at my wife like sometimes I don't want to ask her for help. But when I do ask her for help, like it's so much weight that's lifted off my shoulders. I feel so much better. I just walk in the room smiling, saying hi to birds and stuff. Like it's so much stress that's just gone when you just be honest and ask for help. So I think those are the two biggest things that help me with maturity. Like I can't do it all. I can't. It's not physically, mentally, spiritually, or emotionally possible to do anything by yourself. You can't do it. you know? So yeah, if you're young or if you're old, man, just sometimes you just gotta have those one-on-ones with yourself. Like, all right, I need to be honest. If I'm not honest, then you can't mature. If you cannot be honest at all, then there's no way you can mature. And then the other H, get help. Honesty and
Mm.
help. Honesty, help. Honesty, help. And that's what I've been learning, especially in marriage, man. Being married for
She.
a year coming up. Oh man, I gotta have these honest conversations with my wife, but I gotta say it in a loving way, and then I gotta get help. you know. But yeah, that's what I'll say, man. Honesty and help with maturity, and it all comes not overnight. It's a process. So yeah, that's what I'll say.
Marriage coming up 20 days here, the anniversary, right?
Yeah, 20 in 20 days.
20 days, 3
Yeah,
weeks.
crazy. Like dang, crazy.
Yeah, as a man that's been married, 7.5 years, coming on 8 years next May. I mean,
Mm,
yeah, it is. It's different. Any of our younger listeners out there that maybe have not been married, like you, first of all, you need to make sure that the significant other you have understands your career path, because you just talked a lot about moving, and you took the job and she wasn't there, and very similar with when I took the Towson job. We were both
mm,
at Iowa. I left. She didn't come out there for 7-8 weeks, right? Like you have to make sure that your significant other understands what your job is and who you want to be to the core, and isn't going to force you to change who you are, because
mm,
my wife was never going to ask me to give up coaching. She supported me through my quest to be who I wanted to be.
mm.
When you were talking about your history and your background, and you were talking about undulating and linear periodization, what is your overall training philosophy? What are kind of the X's and O's from a 10,000-foot view of how you go about programming, not
Mm.
only just what you believe in, but like the logistics of, okay, here's your weight room, where's the field located, how are you able to make everything work and function and flow?
We'll start with the philosophy. For me, is to help mitigate the risk of injury, basically non-contact. Help mitigate the risk of non-contact injury. Sometimes with contact, we can't control that, but if we get these kids moving efficiently and putting them in the right joint angles and things of that nature, then we help mitigate, those risk of non-contact injuries. Number two, I want to help increase, force potential, rate of force, and overall strength for any athlete. Three, I want to get them to move efficiently. That's what I call it. Move efficiently. And then four, I do all this as a platform. So for me and my philosophy, I'm training them not only for their sport, but for life. You know, those are my four things. Now, how I go about doing that, it just all goes back to mitigating the risk of injury, non-contact injury. So what we're gonna do with that, I keep everything short and sweet. You know, the 5 or 6 main movements I'm gonna do with any athlete. We're gonna change it up, based on their sport. But the 5 or 6 main things that we're gonna do, we're gonna do some type of power or rate of force development through some type of Olympic lift variation. And if it's not an Olympic lift variation, we're gonna do some type of plyometric variation with appropriate regressions and progressions. So if you can't move well, obviously I'm not gonna put a bar on your back and tell you to do a 90-pound squat jump if you can't squat well. We're going to regress and progress as needed and teach you, but still do it based off your training age and what sport you're doing, you know. So we're going to do some type of Olympic lift variation or plyometric variation. Two, lower body wise, we're going to do some type of squat, goblet, overhead. Basically, before doing any type of squat, we're gonna see if you can do a perfect or see how your body weight squat looks. And I'm also gonna see how your single leg squat does. So single leg squat tells me, if you're good or we got some imbalances, you know. So we're gonna do some type of squat. And from there, based off the sport or what your single leg squat says, we're going to do a lot of work to get your imbalances if you have them. But again, do some type of squat for the lower body. We're going to do some type of three. Number three for me, push and pull. So it's either going to be horizontal, it's going to be vertical, 45 degrees with that. And that could be any type of different variation where it could be barbell, body weight, dumbbells, kettlebells, but we're gonna do some type of push and we're gonna do some type of pull. For me, any type of pull I'm gonna do. For me, I typically do. I don't know. I don't want to get all into it, but I know some people do 1 to 3. Like if we're gonna press, we're gonna do some type of 3. As long as my backside is getting as strong as my front side, I'm good. Strong backside, we're gonna have a good, strong front side. For me. But we can go into, another podcast about that. But everyone does a little different. But for me, push and pull. After that, number 4, we're gonna work a lot of posterior chain. So that low back, them glutes, and them hamstrings. Very important, just like my quads. If I want to get my front side strong, we got to get that back side strong. So for me, I just keep everything simple. We're going to train just as hard in the back as we're going to do in the front. So a lot of, RDL, step up, glute bridges, and the warm ups, just making sure we're activating those glutes and making sure everything's good. Proper muscles are activated. Number 5, we're going to do some type of heavy carry. I love heavy carries for core stability. So we're going to do some type of carry. Could be chaos, eventually down the line with progressions, 2 dumbbells, hex bar. Every athlete for me is going to do some type of carry, heavy carry. And then 5, we're going to do some type of 6, we're going to do some type of sprint, 10 yard. Well, I'm not going to say sprint, but acceleration. let me make that clear. Some type of acceleration, 10 to 20 yards. And I love that we can do that here in our weight room because we have a 38 to, it's about 38-yard turf. So we do a lot of acceleration. And then once we teach them the mechanics, we can load that acceleration, So those are the 6 things I'm gonna do. With athletes, especially in here, and we just want to make them well rounded. You know.
How do you handle progressions and regressions within a large team, but also taking over a new team with culture? Because I know, again, we're in that time where coaches are going to be taking over a program. How do you respect the individual, but also train them as a team?
I would say for me, the best thing about here, and I'll mention this to my supervisor. I don't want to train kids in over a 20 group session.
Really?
If it's over 20, I don't believe, like, okay, if I have 30 or 35 kids, someone's gonna miss something, and there's nothing that I can do unless we have our interns and GAs, just eyes everywhere. If we have more eyes, I'm okay with 30 people. But if it's just me, training a group, I don't want to do over 20 because I feel like I can't do what I need to do and they get the same attention, you know. So if I know all 20 athletes in this group and I've had a good relationship with them, then I can structure it better. But if I have new guys, so let's say, like you said, new coaches coming in and then transfer portal, and we get different athletes. So if we get different athletes within that, group, I know I can say we have 20 and then 15 and then 5 are new. You know, I know with the 15 that I have, I don't have to look at them as much because, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
With these 5, maybe the first day after the warm up, I'm taking a good look at them. And then maybe we'll do, you know, different work just to see what they need to work on. And then they can jump in. But for me, I don't want to do over 20 for what we have now because that way it takes away, from anything going on. But now that, and I'm just speaking here at Driven Elite, I ain't speaking anywhere else. These athletes know the culture, they know the tempo, they know the warm up, they know what to expect. If we keep it at 20, then it's smooth sailing moving forward. So I hope that answered your question. I may have got off a little tangent, but hope that answered your question.
No, that makes sense. And hearing you talk about scheduling, are they also helping you with, any of the those transition times? Like that's a question that I'm thinking, and maybe our listeners are out there thinking, like, okay, when you go from the off season into spring ball, and then all those different intricacies, is that again just layered through the director of operations working with the sport oversight, or how to just again to make again your life easiest and working with the athletes and working with the coaches? Like, just because I'm super interested in how all of this stuff will work, like I'm just trying to imagine those transition periods to getting the energy system work required, and blah blah blah.
Or transition. So now that it's winding down here for our semester, we are actually setting up meetings, with the head coaches and whatnot, and athletic trainers. So then, as it's winding down, because I think next week is the week before finals, so it's really
Yep.
slowing down. So we're scheduling all our meetings, within the next couple of weeks. So after that, once we get the game plan, we'll better have an idea of how next semester is going to roll, and we really have 6 to 7 weeks to plan. So now, what you kind of asked with, basically the what I'm trying to say. Go back to you. I'm sorry. Go back to your original question because I'm getting off tangent.
The original question of like anytime that you're going to be going from an in season to an off season, and whether it's the softballs with their
Mm.
non-competitive season, or football, you're in your early off season phase, you go to spring ball, then you get back out. Like just making sure that the teams in those different transition times, if they have to change their schedule,
Gotcha.
is there
Gotcha.
any big wholesale changes? How do you handle that?
Right. Right. So there's really not going to be a lot of wholesale changes. And I say that here because our weight room is so big. We can have three small teams working out at the same time that doesn't conflict with a big team like baseball or football or track. So once we get those in-season teams basically out the way for the spring, it doesn't mess much up with the bigger sports like football because we can waive it differently,
Gotcha.
you know. And I like it because we have 18 racks,
That is a
So
game changer having that
yeah.
many racks.
Now, if we only had 10 racks or 8, yes, it'd be so messed up. That's what I say, like trying to get everything together. But fortunately, just being here with 18 racks and, the bigger space, everything has been flowing the way it needs to. So foreseeing it in the next semester having issues, I don't see any issues because our sports like lacrosse that'll be in the spring or tennis, or they actually won't be lifting 3 or 4 times a week. There'll be maybe 1 to 2, and that'll open it up for those teams that'll be switching to the off season. It best thing I can put, it'll flip flop. It'll just flip flop, and it's not gonna be a hassle. So
One of the last questions I have for you, to respect for your time, is what would be like your biggest piece of advice to any coach that's listening right now, or like the biggest kind of stamp or thing that you want to leave with our listeners out there about whether it's strength and conditioning or whatever else it is. Like, what is your, like, hey, this is the overarching message that I want to kind of drive through to everybody?
for me, always be honest. And I'm just gonna say this, from this great conversation we've been having, and it just recircled back to my head. Always be honest, no matter how it's gonna make someone else feel. Like, and I'll use this example when we were talking about renegotiating. When my mentor told me, be honest, because the worst they're gonna say is no. Like, you can't control how other people, take honesty. And I'll go back to, honesty, saying it like, yes, be respectful of how you say things. And if it's honest and someone else cannot take it, that's not on you. If you said everything and you respected how you said it and, put it in a way where it's not going to be disrespectful. If someone can't take that, that's not on you, and it probably was not for you. you know. So yeah, being honest and basically honest, respectful, and just keep going. If you can be honest with people and just admit you make mistakes, or things of that nature, with anybody, athletes, or if I made a mistake with you and I came back to you and like, Coach Justin, I just want to apologize for whatever happened. Like you said, like both of us said, if we do that, it diffuses so much. So if we learn to just, honesty just keeps circling in my head, just be honest, it goes a long way you know
I love that you clarified and said that, because as you were talking, I wrote down, I was like, all right, how do you do it in a loving way
Yeah.
where you're not offending people? Because I feel like sometimes people hear that and they're like, all right, cool, let me just dump this on you and like say things to you that you never would have once said to you. And I feel like that can get misinterpreted. So the fact that you handled it and said what you did right there, kudos to you on that.
Yeah. But yeah, man, this has been great. This has been so great. And, I love it. I love what you're doing. I know and I'm gonna just put it out there. When we were supposed to meet, but didn't get to meet till later. But we always got to stay in touch. You're a great individual. I'm gonna put that out everywhere.
I appreciate that, man.
Everyone needs to hear this. You're great.
I appreciate that. And yeah,
so
we didn't get to meet. And, DK obviously spoke highly about you and
that's
apparently spoke highly about me to you. And
he did.
yeah, like I loved him, right? And it was that's kind of why we didn't get to meet, because I loved on the kids in a loving way.
Yeah.
And I did exactly what you said. I told coaches the truth to something that maybe they didn't want to hear.
Hey.
And I did it as politely as possible. Like,
hey, some people can't handle it.
And sometimes it'd be like that. Like,
but look where we're at.
You're right.
If you're honest, it's always gonna come back full circle for you in a great way. So if people can't handle it, we just be mature, and eventually, especially if you're a believer, it's always gonna work out for you. So that's what I'm learning now. So
there is nowhere better to end the show on that. With that, Coach, have a great rest of your day. I'm gonna go to the gym. I got my kid to go train.
Yes,
yeah, man. I appreciate you very much, and we'll be in touch.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Why don't you celebrate by watching more videos just like it? You can also help us on our quest to placate the algorithm gods by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you.